Hey everyone, it's David with Denim Stitch Creative. Over the last 8 years of working with clients and brands, there's been countless moments where I've had to pull off high level concepts while running a small, scrappy team. If you're a founder who's running a lean team and you still want to punch above the weight class when it comes to video, this one's going to be for you. Today, we're breaking down how we helped a startup streetwear brand distill their identity into one sharp video. With just a two-person crew, one actor, and 6 hours on set. But before going into the deep dive, here's how it came out. Now that you've watched it, let's go into how it was made and what lessons you and your team can take away from it to implement into your next project. So, first, I'm going to let you know the logistics. Before conducting any video work, you want to list down all the resources you have available. You always want to be able to know what you're managing. So, for our case, we had a two-person crew consisting of me and my girlfriend Gia. We had one actor, and then we had two locations. Since we were representing a baseball streetwear brand, our first location had to be a baseball field. Now, our second location was actually the owner Jake's house, and we utilized these two locations to film the whole thing. It ended up being a 6 to 8 hour day, depending on if you count the travels. So you might be wondering, why do we want to know this upfront? Because it helps us identify what you can't do. Sometimes it's more important to know your limitations rather than force a thing, right? I get a lot of situations where maybe a client is trying to think about a really big project, but it's not really realistic to the logistics that they have, right? They don't have the necessary resources, they don't have the necessary people in place, they don't have the time frame, or they don't have a long enough project timeline to actually be able to execute some of the things they're talking about. And so by assessing the resources you already have, you can be more grounded in what you're trying to create. This is especially true when you're running in a situation where there's barely any budget, or if there's no budget at all and you're just having your team come out and try to film something. Chances are you're going to run into a lot of problems. In reality, video production is a very expensive process. For some of you, that might be spending a lot of money. For others, it might be spending too much time. And the fear of not knowing if this thing will actually work or not, or if it's just a flop. So I think it's really important to ground yourself in your limitations and your resources. Think about if you can actually execute the things you're thinking about. Some of you might actually be able to execute some of your ideas creatively and not have to affect anything when it comes to time or budget. Knowing this helps you figure out how to project manage and delegate your resources and the challenges or obstacles you will be encountering. Where is your limitation at, and how can you mitigate, prevent, or even take advantage of that situation? When working with limited resources, you want to be creative and realistic with what you're working with. Then you need to identify what your non negotiables are, both creatively and business objective wise, to help you tell the story. Then simplify the rest. While you might see resource constraint as a problem, it's also a great filter to help you make decision making easier. Most of the time, I tell people, instead of telling me what you want, tell me what you have. So, whether you are hiring a vendor or you're trying to go in house yourself, you want to create a scalable, problem solving, creative team. So, now we're going to go into one of my favorite parts, the director treatment. So, even though there was only two of us in the team, I still made it a habit to create a director treatment every time I go out and do a project because it just helps me find clarity in what I'm doing and communicate to the team. Remember, video production requires communication. Let's jump straight into it. So I did this project for my buddy Jake. And what really got me into it was, first, I really wanted to do something that was more sportsy because I always enjoy doing those. It's a lot more fun, a lot more energetic. And never did a baseball piece yet. So I thought that would be a cool little one to do. I just happened to that they're doing a baseball streetwear brand. So I was really inspired by this quote I found maybe in one of the baseball channels on Instagram, but it was everybody wants to make it to the MLB until that alarm clock goes off in the morning. I thought it was a really powerful quote. If anyone knows where that quote came from, feel free to leave it in the comments. I'd like to give them credit. Brand is actually called Morning Baseball, so that's their name. I was picturing a younger athlete in his teens who aspired to train and become a superstar in the MLB. We didn't actually end up working with a young athlete, as you can tell from the video. Evan's a little bit more older. The whole concept behind it is essentially a person waking up in the morning, developing a routine that requires effort, and so I kind of wanted to open up in a city sunrise. Alarm clock goes off, and a hand coming in to kill the alarm clock. Pretty similar to what we ended up doing. Obviously, in the final cut, we took some stuff out and changed some stuff, uh, just for realistic reasons and for creative reasons, and just like the beat and the edit just didn't work with a couple of different shots. And in the bathroom, drawing a marker on the wall, and you saw that too happen in the actual video, recording the days he's already maintained his routine. Um, and then we do a couple of training montages before he gets ready to swing the bat. Then we cut to him at a baseball field getting ready to bat. That's sort of the sequence that we came up with, right? The montage. So we're going to take a look at the cinematography. Obviously, a lot of references here. We didn't end up getting to put this shot in the thing because I just exited it, and we didn't end up using the morning sunset shot because we ran out of time to capture it. Um, that's the thing with sometimes when you're limited by time. There's a lot of things you're trying to cover and you don't get to do it. So I'm like a firm believer of constraints. And so if I was constrained to do something in a certain amount of time, and I wouldn't like force a second chance because then I'm not really in the moment anymore. But obviously, there are times when we can go back, capture more footage and B roll and all that. A lot of it, you'll notice that I was trying to pick someone that's younger. And here again, there's Danny's work. What a wonderful shot. I think this one's his too. I think it's from the same one. So sound wise, we wanted something with a slow build up, and we wanted to have diegetic sounds of the environment, and we wanted to be motivational and cinematic. That just all helped us think about what we wanted to do in the editing room, what we wanted to capture when we're on location. It doesn't matter what your team size is, you always want to form the habit of communicating what your vision is to the team. Okay, you could have one person team, you could have a 10-person team. You still want them to know what you're trying to get out of it. And this is true if you are sending out a creative brief to a vendor, you still want to be able to tell them what you're trying to look for. Even though there's only two of us on this project, having a team sort of, right, if your team size is only two people or one people, still having your team build that habit of communication and visualizing their development. It allows your in-house team to be flexible and scalable. Uh, that way, when you do decide to grow your video team size or outsource to a video production company or agency vendor, you are actually able to build that growth because you have that foundation. I also enjoy the sporadic moments of being in the process and working with the constraints. Obviously, from the work that I actually ended up doing, you can see I make changes in my judgment. When we shot it, right, when the what the location had at the moment, and what we were able to achieve, you kind of have to balance those things out. So when I think about what I'm doing when it comes to a video project, is I have my vision, and then I need to times my vision with my, here, I'm Asian, let's do it this way. My vision needs to times my logistics, right? So aka reality, or realistically what we're able to achieve within the constraints. And then only then do I get the final creative output, right? This is what I end up getting. And so there were a lot of decisions that were made on site. Obviously, with these smaller things, you kind of have to be on your toes and we decided it was a good idea to actually play more blue because we had got there in there pretty early and we had a longer blue hour. We really only had 6 hours, so we didn't want to like wait till the sun rose up more and it started turning to gold. Sometimes I just can't make up my mind on site. Once I saw that opportunity to make it bluer and actually end with a sort of golden hour sun's rising up vibe, I went for that. And as you can see, it's a very short treatment. I didn't do anything too complicated. I didn't put in a bunch of wardrobe. I didn't put in, a bunch of like how should everything be designed. It's just basic bullet points and some visuals and sort of a general concept of what we're trying to achieve. It's not a crazy hard concept. It's a very basic concept actually. So thirdly, we want to talk about how can you help your team identify practical ways to massage the visuals. For this specific project, there was a couple things that I knew were going to be key. And so now I'm looking at the morning shots, right? When we were actually there at around 5 to 6 a.m. And we were waiting for the sun to come up. And as it slowly came up, we started filming this. Sometimes you just have to lean into the environment, right? Because the environment actually gives you the soft blue light in the morning, the blue hour light, and then I'm just enhancing it and pulling it more towards the blue. Like if you want to know how early we actually went there and how strenuous filmmaking really is, right? We're shooting a shot that probably on a YouTube video it's going to be so crushed that this looks like it's pure black. But it was a great thing. So you could see the sky was blue. You could see that the baseball field had their own little sodium vapors up, these little lights out there, creating pockets of light. And I can barely tell Evan's there, but I have a shape of him, and that actually plays towards the story. This is my first time stepping into this place, right? I've never seen the bedroom. Everything was done so quickly, so guerrilla, that basically I came in and I was like, oh, there's only one window. Not too big of a problem. So what I did was I tried to look for a window curtain or a sheer. We didn't have that. So what ended up happening was we went to the bathroom and we grabbed the bathroom curtain and we placed it there as if it was the window curtain. Very fun little thing when you don't have a budget. That's what you do. Just to get rid of, like, as you can see, it's still kind of blown out over here. But that's what we were working with. The sun was already beaming outside. It's California. It was only like maybe 9 a.m. at this point, but we definitely needed the inside to look a lot darker. So we dropped that there, and this is sort of the end result. And then here's another shot where you can kind of tell it's a shower curtain if you were focused on it. So just to let you guys know how bootstrapped we were, I only brought two little LED tubes and one bigger unit light called a 600D for all our filmmakers. You know what I'm talking about. And there was one here. I could be remembering this wrong. And then there was one here. So basically, they were placed on top of this. You can see the bed frame right here, right? So this bed actually had a topper on the top of its bed, so it has a little bed frame on the top as well. And essentially, the two lights are just sitting on top of it, right? Little lights, not even 100%, if I remember correctly. They're like yay big. That's giving you everything you're seeing here. Plus, I had the bigger unit light off super dim, just creating a little bit of fill. Probably left on 0.01, and I still had to throw a bunch of stuff on it to get it as dim as possible. And by throw a bunch of stuff, I don't mean diffusion, I mean random stuff I found in the actual space to lower its intensity. So here's another situation we had where our actor Evan, aside from being a athlete, a baseball player, but at the same time he was a poet. So we actually had him on site and just write a couple of lines about, I believe it was his baseball experience, right? A little oath to baseball and maybe the streetwear brand, right? And waking up early in the morning. We just had him start to write something. We had my girlfriend Gia. We had her draw this little calendar onto the mirror. And so you just have to get really creative, right? These are things because I've never actually seen the bathroom. And this was my first time to see it. And I'd love to usually work with a lot more planning. But once I saw the mirror was there, because every bathroom has a mirror, I decided to utilize it as the calendar board. This shot is literally lit with just two LED tubes again, right? So one was placed, this is a mirror, so it's the kind of inverted. So one was placed over here, and the other one was literally in a very tiny corner over here vertically. And that's all it took was two little light tubes. Sometimes it's not about how much budget you're able to put into it. Sometimes it is actually about how much effort you put in with your team to get to the result. Sometimes you're just limited by budget. And hey, we're all human. We all need to make money for a living. And sometimes you don't have the budget to create a high profile project. That's totally normal. And so in those moments, it's just working around with what we have, right? In our case, we had this whole baseball field in the morning. It was so early, no one was really there yet, and we just utilized it. Grabbed a couple shots of Evan just, throwing the ball, doing some drills, and, breathing and running. That's it. That's all it is. So the reason I wanted to show these breakdowns is I wanted to help founders who are maybe still kickstarting their video journey. Maybe they really love video or they really love filmmaking and they're trying to explore it themselves and they don't necessarily have the budget yet to scale up to a bigger, media team or video team or how whatever you're trying to build in your business. But regardless, I hope this brings you a little bit more closer to where you're at and flattening that video learning curve, becoming more independent as a company to do your videos and communicate better with video vendors and create better projects. Feel free to check out my other breakdown if you're interested to know how I did it with the 3-person crew. These are sort of the things that you can be thinking about as you start to scale more into video. Okay, well, anyways, see you guys next time.